So this is where we're supposed to wrap the night, but I have a question. Dave, would you be interested in sharing one more story? We want Dave. We want Dave. We want Dave. We want Dave.
If only I had known. Actually, if only I had known, because I thought I was done, and so I hit the bar for a while. Menu on. I want you to say rock chalk, Jayhawk. The Kansas thing, you know, rock chalk, Jayhawk. Okay, you know, I told you earlier that I was prepared to do 60 different stories. I was acting like a student. I was bullshitting you. I can't believe you're going to ask me to do this again, but okay. I'll tell you one more story and try and think about this. Actually, what should I tell you about? This coming week, there's going to be the pin relays. And for those of you who don't know the pin relays, it's a great event and you should go to it. And it is the largest collegiate sports event in the world. And so people from all around the world come and participate in this. And I will tell you that the day I turned 40, that a colleague of mine, some of you may know Marshall Fisher from the operations group, comes rushing into my office. And he said, "Happy birthday, whatever, listen, I have a plan." And his plan was, he said, we should run in the pin relays, in the Masters, it was the Masters mile, is what it was, but it was the pin relay. 4 people were going to run 4 laps around the track. And I go, "Marshall, I'm not a runner." And yeah, I, as mentioned earlier, I have started and finished 4 marathons, or 3 marathons, but that is like start, I run, I walk, I finish sometime in the same day, that's it. I'm not really a runner. He said, no, that's okay, we can do this. It's the Masters 4x400. And he said, what we need to do is start training. And we went down and we met with the coach for the pin track team. And we actually started training. We got 2 other people, crazy people, to join us that were on the faculty. And so this was a Wharton faculty team that were going to participate in the pin relays. And we would go out and we would practice all the time. And our thought was that what we would do is, we were smarter than all other runners because we all have PhDs. So what we're going to do is we're going to really learn how to handle the baton. And that's where we're going to make up the time. So we're practicing this whole thing, we're doing it, and I can't believe I got talked into this, and if I had only known when to say no. But we're doing this whole thing, and the day of the pin relays comes, and on that day, we sort of show up, and I've got my running shoes, and I've got shorts and a t-shirt, and we go in Franklin Field. I walk into Franklin Field, and it's bombed. It is jam-packed with people, and this thing is being broadcast on ESPN. And I realize I shouldn't have mentioned that to you because you may be able to find this on YouTube. So forget all of that. This was not on ESPN or anything, okay? And so, we walk into this thing, and what we see is the people that we're competing against. And the people we're competing against are former Olympic athletes. And, we're thinking we're going to be against the Temple Masters 4x400 or something like that. No, these are people that have legs that go from the ground up to their armpits. And they all have these running shorts with singlets and, team logos and things like that. We've got t-shirts that say Wharton Professor. And it's like, this is just crazy. And we have to get in these lines and sort of line up for this whole thing. And oh my gosh, so we decided what we're going to do, and this is what we've been practicing, is that our best runner would go first, and then second best would go second, so that we would be in the race as long as we could possibly be in the race. And so that's what it is that we were facing with this whole thing. And there's a staggered start. You don't start at the same place because you have to go around the curves, and so you want to line up, staggered, and then you could collapse at a certain point. And it turns out that Marshall's going to go first, his idea with this whole thing. And he starts asking the other people that we're lining up with, so what's your strategy? And they're like looking at him like, we're competing against you. What do you mean we're going to give you our strategy? And then they look at him and they go, okay, we can go that. What he decides is he's going to run all out. And as he runs all out, when you get around that second curve, you can start collapsing into the inside lane, and he'll be in the lead. And that's the intent. And so Marshall starts off, and he's running just as hard as he can. He's going to do a 60-yard dash to make it to the front, and then they're going to have to go around him. And he's running all out. And by the time, and there's some elbowing going on and everything when they start collapsing, by the time they go around and they start collapsing, he's dead last. I am going second, and I watch across the track, and there's a pack of runners, and then there's Marshall. Okay. And they all come around, and they're coming around, and I'm watching, and this is like, oh my gosh. And so I sort of get out of the way so they could all go through, and then I'm waiting for Marshall. Okay, now, this is where we're going to catch him. So I've got this whole thing planned. This is where we get our competitive advantage because we've got PhDs. So when I see him get to that certain point, I start to take off. 1, 2, 3, and back. Marshall hands me the baton. Supposed to hand me the baton. No baton. One more step. Wait, there's a line which you can't be running without a baton. So this competitive advantage we have is suddenly lost because I have to turn around to go back to get the baton from Marshall. I get it from Marshall as he is collapsing. I get the baton, and I turn around, and I take off, and I'm running. I go around the first turn, I go around the second turn, at which time I have this notion of, I'm going to catch the pack. I then hear an encouraging sound, which is a group of my students are in the stands, and I hear them yell, "Go Reibstein." I'm running, and I wait. I keep right on running. True story. I left off with factoid. All the time we've been training and everything, I've been in my running shoes. But right before the race, Marshall's son said, "Would you like to have some track shoes?" I don't know even what track shoes are. These are these things that have these long needle points that really give you good grip when you're on the track. Right, Michael G? Right, okay. Sorry, you nodded, yeah, okay, good answer, okay. So anyhow, I took his running shoes, and I'm thinking, that's even going to give me more traction, so I'm really going to catch them. So I go around the third turn, and I'm coming around the fourth turn. And the guy I'm going to hand the baton off to is up ahead. The rest of the packs are way up ahead. And my legs are getting a little bit tired. And I'm wearing these long cleats. And I catch a spike. That's right. And I go down. And I go face first into the track. And I hear from this whole crowd, "Oh." This is not going to deter me. I push myself back up. But I landed hard. I push myself back up. I take 1, 2 more strides, and I catch another cleat, and I go back down. It's on video. There's a crew from the inside of the track that comes running over. "Just stay down, we're getting help." I push myself back up. I continue to run. I hand the baton to the next guy, who was like, "Why bother?" For the record, by the way, it was a clean handoff, okay? I am, and by the way, blood, seriously, blood was dripping down my face from having landed twice on my face. I then go to, I've handed it off, I'm done. I go and I lay down on the infield in total embarrassment and exhaustion. And I hear a voice from Marshall Fisher that says, "Next year, you'll do better." I'm thinking, I'm going to grow this beard, make sure nobody recognizes me. You know, this is just crazy. By the time it got to our 4th guy, he got the baton just as the others were finishing. So he gets the baton. He ran it like a victory lap. He's going like this and applause to everything. It was one of the most embarrassing moments of my life. If I had only known when to say no. Okay. But anyhow, thank you very much for having this here.